I mean, it really made me realize that I don't know, it might have been one of the first times I really felt like someone got through some of that armor.
The heart armor.
Yeah.
Disclaimer. This channel is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional therapy, counseling, or medical advice. The content shared here does not constitute or replace therapeutic services. Please consult a licensed mental health professional for personal support.
Hi, I'm Katie.
And I'm Diane.
Almost 20 years ago, we met in rehab.
And we've been besties ever since.
We've both worked hard at healing our addictions.
And gone on to build meaningful lives.
I'm a licensed therapist and yoga instructor.
And I'm an embodiment coach and tantra healer.
We believe connection and authenticity are the antidote to an increasingly polarized world.
We're here to support you through your most difficult relational challenges with warmth, insight, and humor.
Yes! And remind you, you're never alone.
Because we can relate.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of We Can Relate.
As always, if you haven't yet, be sure to like, save, and subscribe to always stay in the know for new episodes. What do we got, Katie?
Today's topic is the hidden wisdom of triggers. How to stop reacting and start responding.
Yes, please.
Have you ever felt so provoked by someone or something that you shut down completely?
Or on the other hand, completely fall apart, especially publicly. It's the worst. Completely fall apart, have a panic attack, or completely lose your shit.
And if you say no, then we need your tips. But, most of us have been there at one time or another.
It's so demoralizing. Embarrassing.
Yeah. So let's not do that anymore. We were talking about why this topic matters. And when you can be someone who responds rather than reacts, you have the power to profoundly impact not only your life, but the lives of others. And I truly, truly believe that.
Yeah, and we're going to get more into that. We've got a lot for you this episode. What we're going to be talking about, we've got upcoming the definition and etymology. It's something we love to bring in. Our personal stories, the cons or costs of not working with our triggers, ways to know if and when you're being triggered, what that can feel like, what that looks like, where they come from, and the most common triggers that we tend to experience. We're going to go over triggers in the brain, what's the science, what's going on there. We're going to talk about the benefits, the pros of our triggers, which, there
are some.
There's some benefits. And then, of course, tips and tools. So let's dive in.
All right, so we're starting with a definition. And the general definition is simply to cause something to happen, so very basic. The literal definition is any device that sets off a mechanism or process. So you can think of the trigger of a gun. That's the
or a
most
bomb,
obvious one.
Like, I am so triggered, I'm going to pull this and just lob it.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to lob it at you and be done. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the emotional trigger, which is, of course, the one that we're going to be mainly talking about here. And that's something that causes a strong emotional reaction, and it's often connected to past trauma or distress.
Especially, I'm thinking if the shutdown, lob the bomb, and there's not even a reaction because it's so already.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Well, that would be that's interesting. That would be so there's the trigger that would set it off, which would be the explosive, but sometimes you press the trigger and nothing happens, like it's something that goes dead inside. So that kind of is a great symbolism for what we're talking about.
Or if it's a blank, it's sorry to get into gun stuff, but if there's a blank, that can still be terrifying, but it can be it's a perceived threat versus actual. I'm thinking about how we're going to talk about a bit. Sometimes we're in stories or we're triggered by things that are from the past versus in the now.
That's right.
I don't know. I don't know if it fully applies, because who wouldn't be terrified of?
I think it applies. I mean, these are all different. We're talking about, you're bringing in the symbolism, which, I love.
Well, and I love when words are based on symbolism.
Yes.
That's fun.
And that's why we're going into the etymology here, which is so cool. This comes from the early 17th century and is believed to be an alteration of the Dutch word trekken, which means to pull or draw. English then adopted the word trigger So it went from trekken to tricker, referring to a gun, and over time tricker became trigger. And what I thought was so interesting about that was the word trigger, because in Jungian psychology, we have an archetype, which is the trickster archetype. And that trickster energy, really, it can trick you, right? That's the basis of it. It can really make you not yourself. And so triggers make us not ourselves.
Right. Oh, I love that. It's this idea of, well, when we're triggered, we are having an outsized reaction to what's happening in the now. They say 90% is typically behind us and 10% is the actual reality. And so, again, it's a trick.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, I was just recently at a training and my teacher was talking about how when we are in an emotional hijack, heightened max state of a trigger, we're responding to roughly 90% of it is behind us.
That's right.
10% is actually factually what's really in the now.
Yeah.
I'm thinking a little bit about our story just a few minutes ago before, I don't know if we want to bring it in now, but
why not?
This is appropriate. So we were going over our outline for this episode, and I also in this training I was recently at, we were talking about going deeper with the science behind triggers in the brain, and I found it so interesting because developmentally this comes from somewhere. And I thought it was just really interesting, and that's drier for some but also for Katie, and she'd made a little joke about, you know,
I said like, oh, my brain's gonna go off, you're gonna start talking about the amygdala and my brain's gonna be like dur, dur, dur. And really that's what's ironic about that is that there's a trigger element of that for me, which I'll talk about later. But this reaction that I had caused her to have some real feelings.
Right. Well, you'd mentioned once when I first brought it in and you were like, oh, that does nothing for me, but okay. And it was just casual because that's your truth.
Yeah.
But at the time I was like, but it's important to me. And then when you said, oh, maybe when you're getting into the brain piece, I'll say something like, oh gosh, brain, or which is you teasing yourself really. But I heard it as nobody cares. You're taking up too much space and time. It's boring and irrelevant. All of these things. And so my reflex was, that's not very nice. And because for me to advocate about something I find interesting was in and of itself taking up space and kind of hard. But I actually started to, I felt a rise, and you explained very quickly, no, I don't mean it to hurt your feelings. And I was like, my feelings are really hurt. And it was a rise.
And you paused to look at it.
Yeah.
That's what was so cool is as I'm watching that happen, in real time, she's working with her trigger. So you had the rise, I'm witnessing you, and she actually was able to bring herself down from it and go like, okay, this is really interesting. Why am I feeling this way?
A couple of things, because immediately Katie saw me rise, but I knew her making a little joke about doesn't actually mean the things I interpreted. It goes way back. I went, ooh, okay, what's happening right now? Why am I feeling my eyes well up with shame? Okay, well, I grew up feeling like nobody really cared what I had to say or what was going on in my life or what I was interested in. And so showing up and sharing with you guys and practicing using my voice is vulnerable. And so with somebody that I trust your opinion so much, and also, this is something we're sharing together, and I want you to feel like I'm an important contributor or just whatever.
Which I do.
Yeah, well, thank you. But,
so you know.
Oh, Katie thinks it's dumb, and I really trust her, so everyone's going to, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's not what was there. And so it was just really interesting to very quickly be like, ooh, wow, I'm having a rise, and you were so loving, but okay, this is about something else. How can I trace this back? And so...
Yeah, that's right. And I actually learned something about myself too, because when you did start talking, or I was reviewing some of the stuff on neuroplasticity, I was like, oh, I see how I can connect it and make it more interesting for me. And that was really cool. But like, sometimes we just go into our old modes. Like my old mode of is like, I'm not going to understand big words.
Oh, yeah, you do. You dismiss yourself as not as bright and wildly intelligent as you actually are.
Thank you.
And maybe we both share that. I remember at one point I was like, maybe I want to go to med school and become a dermatologist because I love to pick at things. And I remember what I was told. I don't even want to say by who, but somebody near and dear to me said, well, remember, you're not very good at math and science. And so, okay, dream smaller.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're not very good at math and science. Remember that. And so me sharing something kind of sciencey, not a scientist, but this stuff is interesting to me.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're doing it, and I'm glad we got through that.
Yes.
And so
this episode is for those of you out there who perhaps identify with really feeling trapped in a cycle of getting hijacked, triggered, taken over by dysregulated emotions, impulsivity, overreactivity, have a hard time not saying the ugly thing or doing the acting out behavior.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jung has a quote that says, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves. And what I love about that is what he's speaking to is it's pointing out the work we need to do with our own unconscious, right? It's our unconscious material that gets projected. And it doesn't mean that the person doesn't have the irritating quality. It's that let's look at that, what gets under our skin, take it back to yourself, because that way you're going to be able to learn to work with it, and you're going to feel so much better in life.
Oh, absolutely. I love this. Everything is a mirror. Everything is a teacher, in the sense that, you know, if it were a neutral, non-trigger, it would be maybe annoying. Oh, that's annoying. Annoying. Eye roll. But the fact a trigger takes us to a Richter scale of a 10 or dysregulates, as opposed to regulated agitation.
Although me being I was going to say crazy, but I know that's a dicey word, but me being the crazy Jungian person I am, as I go like, oh, but even the annoying thing could be analyzed.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And looking at it, but the relationship to, well, why is it annoying? But it's regulated annoying.
That's right.
Versus dysregulated, I'm going to run you off the road with my car or something of like, please don't ever do that.
Yes.
Get help.
Call us.
Anyways, so Katie, I would love to hear a story of either a chronic, significant trigger or one of the biggest ones you've been working on.
Yeah, I have a few. One of the things that the way I get triggered is I'm an internal implosion person, I guess. It's like I can either be self-destructive, or what I can do is get triggered and completely dissociate, shut down. And so I just kind of drift away. And there's a few places that happens. One is when I'm with somebody and it's not a dialogue. So if I'm being talked at, hi buddy. If I'm being talked at.
Or it feels that way.
Or if it feels that way, it's like I start to feel like, why am I even here? You're not relating to me. You're just dumping on me. Like, but in a deeper way, I used to get lectured when I was younger about things that were not at all, they just didn't matter to me. And my poor dad, he was Mr. Lecturer, and he was trying to teach me about the car and the pistons and, you know, bless his heart. And it's like, I would he really was.
He was looking to relate.
He was trying, but it's like, I can't follow this, Dad. I'm not interested. So I think because in our family, we didn't know at that time what true relating was. You know, that he was doing the best he could to just give me the info, but didn't recognize that I wasn't really there. And
that's painful.
It could be painful. And that's a piece of it. Like sometimes I've had friends in the past who would go out for a glass of wine or something and sit down, and immediately they just dump about their experience. And I'm a listener. I enjoy listening. That's what I do for a living, which sometimes can make it hard then to have more bandwidth for just listening. But I think that piece, the non-dialogue piece, is really tough.
Yeah. Well, and I would invite taking it even further about, you know, what is it about? Like, what are the underlying messages or story, your interpretation of being lectured at or having negativity dumped at you or things you just don't care about? What's the wound about that?
I think
emotionally.
Yeah, I think the emotional wound is feeling like my level of interest in what's being talked about or discussed, it doesn't matter at all. So what would that be saying? I could take it down to I don't matter, or that I'm supposed to care about this thing, but no one's checking in to see, do I actually care? Are we in relationship right now? And this is one of my more mild triggers, but yeah.
Yeah, well, and what I'm hearing in that is being talked at. Not only is there non-relatedness, which is lonely in and of itself, but it's, what does Katie think?
Yeah.
How does Katie feel?
Yeah.
Let's hold some space for Katie.
Yeah, and thank you. And can we ask and care about me too? I really love a rhythm of back and forth, and more so than other people. And one of the ways that this sort of trauma shows up of having been talked at or lectured at, where it felt like I don't have a voice, so I'm just going to shut down inside and kind of hide. That's been stimulated throughout my life. So when I was I was working at Counseling West as an intern, and we'd have 2 hours of group supervision. And that was hard enough for me because 2 hours and other people were talking. I really prefer one-on-one whenever I can. I'm super good on one-on-one. And then after, we'd have 2 hours of a lecture. Y'all.
So how many hours total?
4. And with a little break in between. And I actually have ADHD, inattentive type. And so having to go to these lectures, oh my God, I had to actually take a chair and sit outside the room, because sitting in the room with someone talking at me, and I'm like, especially about shit I already knew for the most part, no offense, it was like basic. I was like, can't do it. I would get up and I'd stretch. Sometimes I'd have to leave early. And I don't think I would be this way, of course, without the ADD, but also without all that stuff from when I was young.
And do you think it was because it wasn't discussion or discourse, it was like, here's a whole brick of information that we're going over that you probably already had in text, you already knew, as opposed to introducing something and then having something more conversationally? Or what do you think you needed?
I think conversationally it would have been a lot better. And also, honestly, I get into this place, and this is where the wound is, because I'm not proud of this. But I often, if it's not me leading a group, I don't want to go to whatever thing you have to lead. And I feel so bad about that, because other people have so much to teach, and I know I have so much to learn. And it's that could really make me come off like I'm some know-it-all. And I don't think that. It's just if I'm not leading, or if it's not like a one-on-one thing, it feels icky for me.
I have thoughts. Can
okay.
I share?
Yeah, please.
First,
I'm scared.
Thank you. Why?
I don't know.
Or would you dare say you're triggered?
No, I'm just a little scared.
Okay, don't be scared. Okay. I love you. You're safe. So one, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing the emotional piece. But also, I'm thinking about how when we have deep trauma or triggers, sometimes part of that pendulum, finding the middle, the balance, is it swings to the other side of, you lectured me and now I can't stand you, or there was no room for me and I don't want to hold space for another person to go all the way. I'm thinking of how, for me, feeling so ignored, my pendulum has been to take up so much space and try to get it all out, where I'm trying to find the middle of taking up space but not having to be so big.
It's so funny you just said that, because what I was noticing is that I was thinking in my head about the story I just told. And my literal thoughts right now in my head were like, I think you talked too long, Katie. So I'm uncomfortable it's weird, because I was such an extrovert as a kid. I did lip syncing contests. I did all these extroverted things, acting, everything. And now it's like, oh wait, are they bored by my story?
Right. Well, because who held space and listened to your stories with interest and captivation and tell me more? What's that like? I think that's a big piece of why this show has been so healing, is to have a voice, feel like it matters. Right. I was also, a question or a thought I had was kind of related a bit to pendulum, but also just, you do hold such beautiful space as a listener and receive and are very receptive, but the underlying part that feels talked at, is there ever any part of you that has the need, I'm wondering, given what you do, where you professionally hold space, but it's not appropriate to bring in Katie. I could imagine that in personal relationships, it's very important that you have room and a place where it gets to be a back and forth when a lot of your professional life, beautifully in what you do, is you're remarkable at it, and I know you love it and find meaning. But it's like, now it's Katie's turn to share what's alive in Katie's world.
You know what? I love that you brought this in, because that's completely not how it is for me when I'm in the professional space.
Fascinating.
Yeah, no, in the professional space, I absolutely bring myself in because that, you would never know it. And I think
You're my best friend, not my therapist, so I don't know.
Yeah, and a lot of listeners might not know that when you work in a certain type of way with your clients and you work in countertransference and transference, which is the subtle energy between two people, which at some point I'm sure we'll get into more.
Can you give a couple?
I'm going to give you an example.
A basic of what I'm confused, or I might be confused. Just what you mean by that.
Okay. Yeah. Transference and countertransference. So transference is the client's feelings towards you, and those feelings may be conscious or unconscious. They may be expressed or unexpressed.
Mirrors.
Countertransference is what I'm feeling towards the client.
Okay.
So that information is exceptionally important. So if I am with a certain client and I know I've had plenty of rest, I'm not tired, but every time I see them, there's a heaviness and a tiredness. It means that the unconscious, it wants us to draw something up from the well and bring it into the light of consciousness. It may happen in that day, it may not. And there are many ways to work with that. But I wanted to clarify that because I actually do get to say in my sessions, I'll say, are you feeling this energy? Is something heavy here? Or what are we not talking about? I find a way to bring that in.
Beautiful. I actually really love that I asked that question, because I started to have empathy of, oh gosh, there's a double down of, if you can't necessarily dialogue about, and of course you wouldn't go into
personal
stuff that would be cross a line of appropriateness. But I, as somebody who works in a different realm of healing, don't know what the lines necessarily would be. So I love that you shared that, and you're right, because in my own relational analytic work, she kind of loves when we have a moment where I'm triggered by something she said, because we get to look at it deeper of where does that go? Where has that shown up in other relationships? Because if it's in the micro container of the therapist's office or the healing space, it's a reflection of the macrocosm of what's going on out there.
That's right.
I love that.
That's right. And it feels very much like, even though I only share a personal story if it relates to them typically, and their healing, it does feel like on a certain level they know me and I know them, and I get to be there. And even the holding space is a part of it. So yeah.
Well,
but what was the original question? I'm losing that. Was there?
Oh, the original question, and thank you, I was just about to come back, is you shared about how one of your biggest triggers that you've needed to work on through the arc of your life is feeling lectured at or just shoved onto, dumped onto, without any relatedness of what's your experience, either verbally or even non-verbally, just feeling, what? What is it like for you?
Yeah. What's what like? Well, I think I just floated. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did a little bit.
I did float. So there might be something here.
I think there might be. I think what I'm wanting to invite going deeper is, we want to know you, and we want to hear about your experiences in a deeper way and hold space for that. And you'd mentioned the thing about lecturing being kind of a lighter one or a smaller one. And I don't know if it's necessarily true or how it has shown up, because I've seen, maybe not lecture, but feeling like space isn't held, or you're not sure if your piece matters, still showing up less so and less intensely. You're working with it, but over the period of time. So I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I definitely misspoke on that. Like, it's been a huge thing. I don't know why I said it's been a smaller one. I really don't know why I said that, because you're right. It's been huge. And I think one thing I was talking about in my own work the other day was just how hard it is to fully let in the reality of our traumas, triggers, the things that bother us, the realities we were in, the emotional realities, because it's easier to do what I just did in this moment, like dismiss it or make it smaller. It wasn't that bad. And so much comes up for me about not wanting to hurt feelings, and, but it's to let in the reality that I really felt talked at a lot, and I really felt like you don't become a bulimic for 15 years if you feel like you have a voice and your emotional needs are being met. You just don't. And that wasn't all it was, but that was a big piece of it. And so, yeah, it does still show up, and it's hard, and it's, it's very scary. Like whenever I'm bringing up something to Diane, even now, my people pleaser complex will get triggered, which is, I shouldn't say anything, or I have to only please her. And so it's been really hard.
Or it's a little thing. Come on, Katie, just dismiss. You know, and it's tricky even today. We've had two today. Facts. So, but because what happens for you is you're practicing bringing it up, and I'm working on my own over identification with shame. I'm bad. I'm in trouble. Like, and it's okay. I'm not a bad person. That this came up for you. And it's these are micro moments where we're like, oh, there's something here, and we're practicing speaking into it, and meeting it with relatedness. And it's still tough. Yeah,
even the micro moment when I had brought something up to her, I was like, I'm having feelings about it. And then I saw her have feelings about it.
You felt, because I think I kind of went, like, it got still, and I could feel the little rise in my heart of like,
yeah. And as soon as I felt her rise, I immediately started backtracking. Like, never mind, it wasn't important. This was stupid. And because I was terrified. She was going to get really activated, and then she won't want to come over and film and do the thing. And it's these things that seem so small. I'm telling you, if you can work on them, they do get better. Because what happened in our friendship in the past, we might have not been able to talk for a day or something.
Or just I think even more than that is it just wouldn't get spoken into, and this is the debris that builds and builds and builds until, even if it's a little thing on the Richter scale, suddenly now it's level 12 and we have no idea where it began.
Yes.
And that relates to another episode of saying the hard things. And so what was sweet is I saw Katie start to backpedal. She was repeating herself about, well, I just, and even though I had that rise, a little bit of a defensiveness come up, I noticed us both working to stay regulated. And I was like, she was like, I'm just trying to work on speaking into. And I the third time she said it, I put my hand on your leg and I said, I hear you. Thank you for telling me. And just because there's a part that rises in me of, well, but I thought I'd been doing better, and I've been putting effort into this. All true. And then, but I'm not a bad friend. Like, I didn't mean anything by it. And I was just, and you asked me to do this piece, and I did do that piece, and all of that's my stuff. And so I get to still thank you and appreciate. It doesn't mean yours. It's not a zero-sum game of,
that's right.
Oh, we're both having a mutual blip.
That's right.
And how can we stay in connection and work with it and let it all be here?
Yeah,
safely.
And that was so beautiful that you did that, because it immediately calmed me, and I was like, okay, it's okay that I said it. And it does amaze me. It amazes me after working on certain things for so long that they still show up. And that's why we're here to talk about them, because the way we handled this and the way that I was triggered, then she was triggered, but it's so much softer, and there's so much more space.
And less terrifying.
Yeah, and we don't bury it. We don't put it under the rug anymore.
In fact, this all happened between the Starbucks that was a mile away, on the drive back. And not even, I think it was half the drive back, so a half mile of, hey, I wanted to check in about this thing. And then I had a little, I'm not a bad girl, I didn't mean it, I've been working on it. And then you repeated yourself a couple times, I'm just trying to speak into the things more. And then finally I was like,
scared.
I know. And then I said where I was, blah, blah, blah. And by the time we pulled in, 3 minutes later, I go, I feel clean. Do you feel clean? I feel so clean.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, we've really definitely.
We're super clean.
We're super clean.
So what I love about this little micro experience is because we're both committed to being safe spaces for each other, working through co-healing together by being able to work with our triggers, speak into real time, receive each other. What happened in very small on the grand scheme of things. You had a little trigger, I had a little trigger response. So they were happening at the exact same time. But we both did a good job, I felt, of extending a hand to the other and allowing us to just have that.
While also self-regulating, I felt.
Yeah.
Like we were both working simultaneously on regulating our own reactions and holding space for the other, which I think you often can't do until you get to that level of consciousness. Like a lot of times, you know, we would recommend that you just, whoever brings their feelings in first in a relationship, you tend to that first, because it can be hard to try to do both. But I think when you get to a certain point, you can do both. I think that's what we're discovering.
It was really nice because so we're responsible for what we say and how we respond to our triggers. And Katie did a great job of communicating it. I know it's something she's working on, speaking into. And so I was like, notice that. And yet something came up for me and I'm working on it. And I was like, okay, I had the urge to dismiss. But then what happens is Katie's little trigger gets lobbed over to me as a little trigger, and then I carry it like that debris. And eventually, maybe we would have come back from coffee, and I would have been like, geez, what was that about?
If we hadn't also kind of talked about that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and so the beauty of co-healing in relationships when you're growing with somebody is to be able to be like, oh, I see this is your work. This is also my work. How can we navigate this together in a related way? And that's such part of the why, part of the why we're here.
Why we're here, yeah.
I love it.
I do too.
Yeah. So, where to next, Katie?
Well, I wanted to ask you about what is a trigger you're currently working on?
Okay, yeah, I would, oh goodness. I mean, there have been so many over time. But I think one of the ones that continues to be one I got to keep an eye on and that I've done the most work around because it goes all the way to the core. There's two actually. One is feeling invisible, unseen, like I don't matter. But the other one I think that I'll speak into is just a history of feeling like all that matters about me are looks, body, sexuality, being wanted, being grabbed at by men in ways that I didn't invite in any way, or even expressed my no to. So that's been one of, as I'm growing into myself, taking up more space, using my voice, getting into a healing practice where I work with a lot of men, it's difficult for me as I am showing up more with my other qualities, but also speaking and expressing my boundaries directly in a regulated way. When that continues to still feel crossed, it's triggering for me because I've done so much work, and
you've often shared too that like you've done enough work to where you have your boundaries, you state them, you know, there's a back and forth. So you've gotten this far, and then it's like if someone, and you don't really react to anything there, but it's like if someone then pushes you, that's where it seems to me you've grown so much because you're in a place now where, you know, what would have once triggered you more is now like, okay, someone's pushing after I've already explained myself.
Right.
And instead of me going into the trigger, I'm going to use this in a different way.
Yes, absolutely. And this is another benefit of working with somebody. This one was so deep for me and so complex and showed up in all these different ways under the iceberg. It was a dense one for me. And so having the support of somebody that could reflect it back, connecting with you, Katie, somebody I really trust, to help me tease apart the ways this was showing up. And specifically, I'm speaking into with my practice. I'm not available for escort services, and I'm very heart-led, very healing-led. Really believe in the healing aspects of Tantra, the deepening intimacy aspects of Tantra. But that does not make me, my truth is that I am not available in a way that for solicitation, and sometimes I still get requests, or what I call octopus hands of, we're doing body work, and I've made it clear, like, please, these are the boundaries, and okay, but, and I would get frustrated. I would get irritated.
Get like triggered just thinking about that. Like,
well, yeah.
Yeah, like get your hands off. Like we agreed to a set boundary. This is what I do. This is what I don't do.
Right.
And unfortunately, there are so many people who just ignore it.
Right. And so the trigger for me, it's like, okay, now it's in my write-ups for before sessions. It's something that when we discuss boundaries on both sides in the beginning of sessions, before body work, these are all expressed along the way. And I even say, thank you for respecting these boundaries, because then we're allowed to go even deeper. I stay safe because I trust you. I know my boundaries will be respected, so I don't retract and feel preemptively defensive. And in that, we get to go to the deepest part in you to really work with what's there. The octopus hands are typically a deflection of meeting the deeper place. And I can appreciate somebody being aroused or, ooh, zha. We are meeting this deeper part through sensuality. So I understand all these things, which led to me not speaking so much at first. I would just feel triggered of, I'm now being reduced to this. This is all I'm good for. This is what, like, the
so
only
painful.
reason somebody came to see me is this. And I had to really, and unfortunately, initially, part of why it was so important for me to work on this is my calling is to work with people who are wounded. And a lot of men struggle with navigating their sexuality, their sensuality relationally. And my work, what I love to do is be a conduit for the divine feminine. And so if my triggers come in and I'm hijacked, even privately, that's going to be felt because of that contraction.
That's right.
And then we're not able to meet in sacred intimacy. And I'm not speaking into sacred sexuality in the sense of penetration, but we're not able to have intimacy in the way of emotionally, energetically, etc., because I'm now triggered, and if I feel like I can't speak into that, it adds to that trigger.
That's right.
And I'm not really able, I'm blocked by my 90% of old stuff.
Yes.
And not able to meet the blip of the moment in a regulated way, or I would silence myself, but inwardly I'd be like hurt or angry. And then I'm not able to meet the client and really invite them to the most effective level possible. I went more into my training and being, but this is not the coldness, or not coldness, but the closed energy is not the part where the transmutation really happens.
When you say you went more into your training, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's not like I would freak out, but I would.
Okay, you're saying once you've got triggered.
When I would,
yes. Okay.
Right. So I would get triggered by the what I felt were direct propositions or roaming hands, and I would gently redirect, but inwardly I'd feel offended.
I see.
And
instead of speaking directly to that,
right,
you went into training mode.
Right. I would actually dissociate, and because I'd start to float away, and
Can
so I
relate
would
to that.
I'd float away and be in sort of the old pain of nobody cares. This person doesn't value you. Nobody values you. Men don't value you. This was all a ruse. This whole thing about, I respect you. I'm here for the healing. Really, it's I want to get between your legs. And that has been so painfully reductive to me. It led to me not pursuing dreams for years and years and years, because who cares? I don't have anything more to offer the world. And so that's the trigger. But as I've been able to recognize that and realize the benefit of me staying regulated, speaking into, when this happens, it actually gets in the way for both of us.
That's right.
And I know you're here for something deeper and something more, and I so want to meet you there. That's doing it in a regulated way instead of a defensive way. I'm not then projecting all over him. And so what would happen formerly is I'd dissociate. I'd feel angry. Angry is a trigger for me, so I would dissociate beyond that. And go into professionalism. Just, this is my training, and but it would be less.
Well, it wasn't
engaged.
real, and it wasn't authentic, because you didn't feel safe to be authentic.
Right.
And that is something I can relate to beyond. Like when we talk about, in other episodes, we've talked about a part of me that's the ice queen, and she's what I would call a complex, which is a set of ideas and beliefs that are usually related to early childhood trauma that get activated, stimulated. And so she is a complex in me that will get stimulated if I feel like I haven't been heard enough or if someone has hurt me. If I'm hurt, it is so hard. I've had to work so hard to come back from that. I had a thing just the other day with my boyfriend, and I felt hurt and I was angry at him, and so I shut down. We're in the car driving to go somewhere for like half an hour. And at one point he put his hand on my knee and he squeezed and I was like, okay. But I had tried earlier to give him a hug, and I said, like, I was fighting my own ice queen at the time. I was like, looked in his eyes. I said, we're going to get through it. It's going to be okay. And I gave him a hug.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Way to work with it.
Thank you. But here's where she gets triggered, because he sort of ignored that. And then when someone ignores my
vulnerability.
Well, yeah, now I'm trying to be vulnerable. It's like when I hate this, like when you say you're sorry and you mean it genuinely, and then the person doesn't accept you're sorry and they just start like keep going, well, yeah, you should have been sorry. It's like, why am I even giving you my sorry?
Or keeps telling you why you're wrong.
So, yes. So I got triggered here.
Because you felt unmet.
I felt unmet, and I'm like, okay, he's going to be this way, fine. And he was like, I just don't want a dialogue right now. And I was like, okay, fine, I'm not talking.
Because maybe his ice king was triggered.
Yeah.
Which is so hard.
I know.
Yeah.
So we're in the car going, and at pretty early he reaches to grab my hand. And my inner dialogue is like, first of all, I was glad he did it, but did I share I was glad? No. And then the whole ride there for half an hour, I'm just in my own head going, should I talk? Should I say something? No. He said, don't. He doesn't want a dialogue. He can say something first. I'm not saying anything. And just like staring out the window, cold, angry. I did not react to his hand. I was just like, this is so stupid. Why are we even doing this? Like, I don't know why we're going on this hike. There's no point. I went into a whole thing, and just for me to thaw and to come back and to be like, we had to get to the place. Wow. I can feel it even now, and it's...
Me too.
It's
really... Take a nice deep breath with me, man.
Yeah.
These things, I see your eyes.
Yeah, it's just...
It's
hard, and I'm grateful I've worked on her as much as I have, because
her being the
ice queen, because you can see like how I got taken over for an entire car ride by stonewalling him, and... it's an example of us triggering each other,
and
right?
You love this person.
Yeah, and I love him.
Can I ask, which we can always cut or not, but taking it a little deeper, without going into specifics that maybe he wouldn't love, what was the original wound-ish? Like just in a short...
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it had to do... The original trigger. I think it had to do with, we were talking about some of our... kind of complaints in the relationship, or things that weren't quite working.
That's hard.
Yeah, and it was
not to get defensive around. That's
hard. It was hard.
Great conversation to have, though.
Yeah, and he brought up some things. He made a few good points. I made some points, but we just weren't in a place where we could feel okay about it yet. And then I tried to make him okay by giving him a hug, and he rejects it. Then I am rejected. Now I'm going in my thing.
And he's trying, and so this is a dance. What I'm hearing is just to remember, because how amazing, what healthy communication to be talking about what I like to start with what's working really well, but also what's not, and what's tough, and what do I need and want more of in this partnership to allow us the relationship we most want.
That's right.
That's beautiful. And of course it's tender, because you love this person.
I do. And the good thing about it is that, and this is one of the tips and tools that we'll get to later, and I'll repeat it, but it's just that he knows, I've been able to tell him, he knows my triggers. So the ones that I'm aware of anyway. And so does Diane. And so they both know I have an ice queen, and they both know I shut down, and they can feel her and they get it. And that's the benefit of being able to even talk about those things with your partner, because then there's a little bit more room for grace and compassion, because they know it comes from trauma.
Yeah. Well, and I love this, and just speaking, like weaving that back around to my the struggle is, I really realized that I feel called to work with people with these kinds of wounds. The flip side of mine might be men that are over-sexualizing. Guess what? The micro represents the macro. If that's what's getting in the way of the relatedness with me, it's probably getting in the relatedness in other relationships.
That's right.
Female, oftentimes they come to me because maybe their marriages or their relationships and partnerships or just dating in general isn't working. They're not getting the thing they want. Well, guess what? Women soften when we feel met in the heart, when we feel safe. And so...
Can't wait. I need you to repeat that for every single man out there, because it is so, so important, because I think it's just so much deeper even than it sounded. So what did you just say?
Thank you for having me slow down. And important for women too as data in terms of self-advocating. Because how many women out there have felt like, oh, my partner's just trying to get between my panties, and where are you? I don't feel loved or met or aroused enough or connected, related. So clients come to me, aren't getting the love, the relationship, the sex that they are hungry for. Well, I don't understand. The wiring is different. And my point is the reason it was so imperative I worked on this trigger in myself is because if this is happening for these clients and they're coming to work with me because they feel called for the other reasons I post in my ad, it's because there's something in their macro, their lives on a bigger scale that they need support with.
That's right.
So they bring it in. When we're wounded, we bring that in. And on a relational healing level, I'm a representation of the other relationships in his life. So if the bypassing of emotional relatedness to hurry up and get to the sexualization, it's a representation of what is very, very, very almost always likely happening in the other relationships that are leading to not getting the sex.
That's right.
Because, and this is the part Katie asked me to repeat, is women, we open sexually, and become more receptive when we feel met in the heart.
Yeah, and I would also say we open when we're met in the heart. That is opening emotionally. So you know, we've always said this. I think we've said this other times. But if you want to have more sex, and you're in a relationship with a woman, learn how to emotionally relate to her heart, and you'll be having more sex.
Guaranteed. I mean, I don't want to say guaranteed,
but guaranteed.
She might have her own work. But it's really, because how many women out there, I don't know any woman who hasn't questioned or felt reduced to her sex and like, oh, he's just here for one thing. We see that everywhere. We hear it. It's like, oh, he's just here for that. Well, guess what? Being met in the heart, feeling safe, can shift that. So that was a big trigger for me, and thank goodness, because now I'm available in a more regulated way. But it was tough.
Yeah,
tough
very tough. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
And just taking it even one step further, we're going to get into the costs and the cons of not working with these triggers. But I wanted to bring in something from pop culture, because I was trying to think, we see dramatized versions of these reactivities, of triggers, and the consequences they have, and they're very normalized in our culture, and let's remember how they might harm us. So let's look at this. This is a song by Carrie Underwood called Before He Cheats. Right now, he's probably slow dancing with a bleach blonde tramp, and she's probably getting frisky. Right now, he's probably buying her some fruity little drink because she can't shoot whiskey. Right now, he's probably up behind her with a pool stick, showing her how to shoot a combo, and he don't know. I dug my key into the side of his pretty little souped-up four-wheel drive, carved my name into his leather seats, took a Louisville Slugger to both headlights, slashed a hole in all four tires. Maybe next time, he'll think before he cheats.
This also song could be dubbed Homegirl's Triggered.
Homegirl is triggered.
She's triggered. Okay.
Level 12.
Level,
And your legal record, everyone says, please don't do this. Work with your stuff.
Work with your stuff, yeah.
Well, and I just thought it was so interesting. He's probably.
The stories.
He's probably. He's probably. So then, and
then the story that she tells herself, that justifies slashing his tires? We all know it doesn't. We all know it's a song, but it does show what can happen when our triggers take us over.
Well, not only that, but maybe he'll think before he cheats. That doesn't, acting like a crazy unhinged bitch is not likely to get the outcome one wants, which is fidelity, meaningful relationship, respect. I certainly know that when I've gone off and done some impulsive, reactive things when triggered, not only does it not get me what I want, I then feel demoralized and embarrassed after, like I have no dignity. So I just thought that was a fun one to bring in.
It's a great one. Another pop culture reference I always think of when I hear of triggers is the Kardashian family. And I just want you all, as you're listening, what did that bring up for you? Because a lot of people are like, I don't care, and maybe that's true, but I think a lot of people have a lot of strong feelings, and some people love them, some people hate them. From what I understand, there's a lot of hate given to this family. But it's interesting to me. I used to really not like what it was I thought they stood for, which was, to me, it was a symbol of materialism and sort of, it just felt like valuing the wrong things.
Like a platform for vapidity and egregious consumption and I used to think selfish wealth because I didn't know what they did to contribute to society.
Yeah, and I've watched their show now, and it's like I don't get triggered by this anymore, because it's like I recognize that I was putting this, making them a symbol of something in our culture, so I can become aware of, oh, that's a projection. They're just a family. Yes, they're rich. They do what they do, whatever. But it doesn't affect me. But it's interesting that in the past it would be like, what do they? Why are they? How they are? And it's like they're just people.
They're people. They're people. And that's
and they do a lot of good.
They actually do. Like the criminal justice reform stuff that Kim's doing, I think is so admirable. I wish they'd do a whole spinoff just on that. It's so great. And beyond that, I know they've done some other beautiful things. So that's a fantastic point you bring up too. Is that our triggers can give us data about our values and principles, like, oh, this show goes against my values and principles this, or politically, I'm so triggered by fill in the blank because it goes against my principles and my values.
That's right.
So now we want to go a bit into the cons or costs of not working with our triggers, how they harm us. So a first one would be really getting into story, incorrect assumptions about a person, place, or thing. One could call it a projection.
And if we want to get real specific, which we do, about the word projection, the definition of that is an automatic process whereby contents of one's own unconscious are perceived to be in others. So basically stuff that we're unaware of in ourselves, that they have that, they're picky, really I'm picky. They're jealous, well, I have jealousy. I always think it doesn't mean that, and I think I said this earlier, it doesn't mean that the other person doesn't carry that, but that it's our own stuff.
Well, yeah, that actually makes me think of an example I had of, have you ever been in a relationship with somebody that's easily triggered by jealousy or things from their cheating past, and it's like, I'm not your ex, or you're not my ex. Feeling controlled by people is a trigger for me because of my history with controlling relationships. And holding space that this person, just because they have a question or feelings or need, doesn't mean they're trying to put a chokehold on my freedom.
Yeah, that's a great example. I was thinking about people who have been cheated on, or people who are cheaters. When someone is a cheater, oftentimes they will be projecting onto their partner, are you cheating on me? Because they're the ones cheating, so that's a projection, right? Although that one, they know they're cheating, but these things can happen.
They're dicey. They're very dicey, and it's, maybe a problem or an issue with being not working on our triggers or starting to separate and identify this 90% of overarched reactivity is actually about something else, is it's engaging or bringing the present into the right now when it's not happening right now. That's necessarily. Right.
Yes.
It's maybe touching on it, resonating with it, but it's not the whole iceberg.
No, not at all. Yeah.
Yeah. What else do you have?
Yeah, so when we're not working with our triggers, what that means when we are triggered is that we're not connected to the fullness of who we are, right? We're only connected to the traumatized part of us in those moments.
Oh.
And no one wants to be hijacked, as you said earlier, or taken over by a traumatized part. And so if you learn how to work with your triggers, which we're going to share how to do that soon, you're going to feel better, just plain and simple.
And more regulated, because the more we start working with these things in a compassionate compassionately curious way, we increase our tolerance or capacity to be with them, as opposed to resisting, which creates the pressure, which creates the eruption.
Yeah, and the other cost that I was thinking of was that when we don't work with our triggers and we come to our relationships unregulated, we have a much higher chance of then triggering them, right? And then what happens is you get into a cycle of I'm triggered, no, you're triggered. It's like this dramatic thing. And
the finger pointing versus the extended hand.
Yeah, and one thing I've really appreciated about my relationship now is how much I've noticed in myself when I can feel the triggers and I'm working with it and breathing. And I'm like, okay, Katie, you're going to wait till you're more regulated. And then when I've brought things up, it's been so much more calm. And then he doesn't get triggered. And he does the same with me, where he takes a minute. And just coming in regulated is like our relationship is going well because of that.
That's beautiful. It's one of the reasons both Katie and I are like, we've got to connect with somebody that has done the work or has these skills to meet there, because same, I would say there's a dear connection of mine, and one of the things I really, really value and appreciate is our shared ability to be like, hey, this is hard for me, or wow, thank you for telling me that. How can I support you? Or what do you need right now? As opposed to, well, which would be their own unmet stuff, but it doesn't get us anywhere.
That's right. So the other thing that can happen when you don't work with your triggers are that you can actually trigger a complex, like my ice queen, or like your inner critic. And a complex is, as I said before, an emotionally charged group of ideas or images. So what does that mean?
Emotionally charged group or images, like in the psyche?
Yeah, in the psyche. So it's something that takes you over. Like, it could be one feeling, but it could also be a few feelings, and it could constellate or come together as, for example, for me, my ice queen, where I shut down. There's so many feelings that I just go numb, then I just go over here.
Okay.
And so I think they're just a little bit, it's something that can, I don't know if it's really saying the same thing, actually, because it is about feelings, but it's just something to be aware of.
Oh, I like that. It's, I'm thinking about, one of the ones I've identified is my inner pillager that just says, we don't have time for feelings, do the thing, make the money, blah, 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 like bypasses the emotional self. But what I'm thinking about, even more nuanced, because as you were saying that, do you recall what the definition was again?
Yeah, it's a feeling-toned set of ideas or beliefs, and usually comes from trauma.
Okay, because I'm thinking about how resentment and anger
go together
as a whole thing to me is it can be very triggering, but that's different than being like, I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling resentful. It's being taken over
by it.
Or it was one of the biggest things, triggers for purging was my anger, get it out, reject it. And so would that be a complex?
Yes.
Like there's a...
Like the inner bulimic would be, you'd be taken over by the bulimic complex.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's helps clarify a bit. Another episode I think would be a really good one. Going
absolutely.
Deep.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and so I think the other con or cost that comes up for me is, when we touched on before, is getting a reputation of somebody who's a ticking time bomb, or just full on cannot handle hearing the truth. Which is really an unfortunate thing, like getting known as the crazy bitch who loses their mind. And the cost of that is people don't feel safe or feel like they can meet you there and just have to tiptoe around. It's been so wonderful and nourishing to, as I've worked on being more regulated, I didn't really go into rage so much as emotional collapse and crying. Like I would just hyperventilate if I'm the worst and the shame. But then Katie, with the cost of that was fear of telling me things for not wanting to trigger that. And what a beautiful thing. At one point I even said to you, you were like, I'm scared to hurt your feelings, and it silences me sometimes, I'm really working on this. I hear you, that's how it's been. And I'm not the same person I was a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I'm really working on building the capacity to meet you there. I want to hear what you have to say as opposed to, how could you? Which is me focused instead of relationship focused.
That's right. That's so well said, and very, very mature thing.
As opposed to, this person's going to pop off, slash my tires in cars, break up with me.
Yeah.
All of that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think you had another quote.
And also, if there is somebody in your life that is super reactive and doing that, just know that they're not themselves. And it is a good time to not disengage, usually, or to take a step back.
Well, yeah, because the reality is, when we're in our trigger, I'll go into the brain part a little bit later, but it's that primordial lizard brain that just is in flight, fight, freeze, trauma. Yeah. So.
Yeah, there's a quote I wanted to bring in by Marion Woodman.
Love.
And she says, the body remembers what the mind forgets. The body remembers what the mind forgets. A trigger may set off an emotional reaction that seems irrational. Because it's rooted in trauma the conscious mind cannot access. A trigger may set off an emotional reaction that seems irrational. Because it's rooted in trauma the conscious mind cannot yet access. Or cannot access. That's so funny because in my notes I put Katie would add yet, not yet access. Right. Because I think you can get there.
Well, and that's where speaking into increased capacity, almost like exposure therapy, or just exposing oneself to working with in a safe, contained way in safe relationships, we build the tolerance, and the more we do that, the more we can access, the deeper it goes, the more nuanced and yummy, and the stronger that muscle is to continue to be stronger and stronger, or more effective and more effective in how we respond to these things.
That's right.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that quote.
Yeah.
So, what's next?
We're on to ways to know if you're being triggered.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think this is important for any of you out there that can identify or recognize that you have the outsized reactions, but are there other ways, or how else to know? Because there's some other signs and tells that maybe I'm triggered, like dissociating.
Yeah.
So that brings us to ways to know when you're triggered, to identify. And, it might seem intuitive that it would be a really sudden, intense, emotional reactivity that where you feel really activated, almost possessed or taken over, hijacked by an outsized proportion to the event or the comment or the experience. And it's something that, to a degree, that even if logically you're able to identify and be like, ooh, I'm triggered, which is its own growth or a great place to start. But even then, sometimes we can be in logic and we are not able to override the trigger and the panic. And so that's a great way to know, and we'll get into later where that comes from and how to work on it.
Yeah, and I think you make such a great point with that, because this is so important, how to know. Because when you can realize, oh, I'm having this huge reaction, you're already a step ahead of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's the place to start. And I noticed for myself, when I started being able to identify, ooh, I'm activated, my body's having a response, it was really tough because it brought in the dismisser that would start to negotiate of, oh, but I shouldn't feel that way, which actually made the trigger even bigger because of something else we'll get into. A double trigger.
Yes. I think another way to know if you're being triggered is just the physical symptoms of that. So like a racing heart, sweating, muscle tension, panic attacks, trembling. I had a client once who, it was a long time ago, but they were working on noticing when they were getting angry. And they would rise from basically nothing to rage. And we started working around, like, this person didn't even realize when they were becoming enraged, and they couldn't get themselves out of it. But over time, I would have him say, like, what did you feel right before that? Okay, right before that. What are you noticing right now? As I could start to see him get angry, it would be like, are you noticing anything? Oh, well, my cheeks are red. Yeah, your cheeks are red. Okay, what else? And when you identify those physical symptoms, you can understand that your body's having that reaction, and that means, okay, what do I need?
Yeah.
A breath, something.
Yeah.
Right?
I remember when you told me about this, you'd mentioned that, there's the shallow breathing. We tend to go up into the, that with the racing heart. But also you'd mentioned, I remember that his voice would actually change.
Yeah, that's right.
Didn't it like go higher?
His voice increased in intensity, and the funny thing was, at first he really didn't know, or once he learned to know, he couldn't bring himself out of it. So again, here we have ways to know, but it's also a process in learning to regulate.
Oh, absolutely. And I think this brings back to the body symptoms, because or possibly the urge to flee, run, withdraw, act out, slam doors, be impulsively harm oneself or others. I think a lot of violence comes from this. That gotta do something, because in the body, the soma, the body, is actually having a trauma trigger response of, okay, I'm activated. This needs to come out.
Yes.
And that energy is in motion and trying to go somewhere. So like that trembling, your body's actually in the state of flight, fright, freeze.
Or fawn.
So.
Yeah, and I love that one, Di, because it made me think of, I've used this quote before, and I'll probably use it again, but it's one of my faves. It's by Viktor Frankl, and he says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose. And
one more time. Oh, I love this one.
Yeah.
We can never get enough of this great quote.
It's such a good quote. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose.
Our power to choose.
And now that comes with a caveat. And the caveat to me is that sometimes there's very little space, or we can barely even know it's a space because it's like this.
Right.
And so that's what Diane is talking about when she is saying, look, this is a way to know. You might want to withdraw or flee or act out, or, the body, the soma is having this response, and I want to just move right from stimulus to response. But it's like, that's the work right there.
Yeah.
To stop it and come back.
I often use the metaphor, the analogy. We're building muscle here, and I know I say this a lot, but it's because think about going to the gym. When you first go in, maybe you can do a couple minutes of something lighter. So it's if you just aren't even noticing, it's like going to the gym for the first time in years and just getting the lay of the land.
Oh my God, yeah.
And getting familiar with like, okay, I'm moving my body in different ways. You're moving your energetic body in different ways, your emotional body in different ways.
That's right.
And if these are new concepts, let's have some grace for the practice that it takes time. But the fitness comes, the emotional and energetic fitness, the strength gets built. And I
love that analogy.
I do
it's
too.
So true. People only think of it in the physicality,
Right.
but psychological muscles, energetic muscles take, most of them for many of us are atrophied.
Right.
And they're freaking atrophied. And we need a lot of patience and, like you said, grace, in order to build them, even between us. Like, we're working on these things. We mentioned some triggers coming up over this episode on triggers, and which is own meta, and that's partly why the show is so great for us too. But it's like we've worked together on this for 3 years, and we still find things and still have to build these certain muscles. And I went from an atrophied muscle here to now it's a little baby muscle.
Oh,
it's like,
you're pretty darn fit.
Yeah,
like and us too. And we've taken it even further. This show is so amazing because,
if we do say so ourselves,
in terms of the work and the fruit. I said the other day when we were having our triggers and it was tough, I said, this is really hard for both of us, because we're like, this is hard. Ways to know you're being triggered. But okay, we've identified we're triggered, but I'm still triggered as fuck.
Yes.
And I love you very much. So where do we even go? Do we want to do this? Is this show going to ever work? Are we going to be able to stay friends? Like, can we get through this? We obviously.
Well, that's what we're committed to, but not obviously, because, and this is so important. I'm glad we're taking this segue here in this episode, because this is super important, Di. It's like, not obviously, because I don't know, and this is
Right.
what makes me like, I want to cry. I don't know if we hadn't committed to this show, if we could have made it through these, because they're so, our triggers are so strong and powerful. And I like to believe we could have, because there's so much love in our friendship. And this is why people don't have good relationships, or they can't stay together, or they can't make it work, because we don't know how to work on our triggers. We don't know how to regulate. We don't know how to listen.
Don't know how to disidentify that we are our trauma and triggers, because we're so hijacked and taken over.
That's right. And when we can say, it's so easy to just be like, oh, F them, like they just need to do this or that. But when you actually find love in someone, whether friendship or otherwise, you feel like it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard work. It's gonna be the hardest work you ever do, but this is also the most meaningful, and that's our why. That's why we do this.
Oh, I have chills.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love
you
too.
so much. I said to her, coming back to what I said, this is really hard right now, and I trust we're gonna figure it out, even though it's scary. Yeah. And being able to hold the both. I'm scared that maybe our friendship can't sustain this. That's the trigger from my old stuff. But also I hold space, because what do I know about my Katie? What do I know about my best friend and our commitment to coming back?
That's right.
But this show absolutely has taken us deeper. And I said, okay, this is hard, and this is going to bear fruit. This is we are a tree in the orchard, our friendship right now. Bear with my metaphor, but a fruit tree, but this creates the orchard. It supports this is why we're doing the show, because we did get through it. Beautiful. And our friendship is deeper and richer and more meaningful because of these things. The co-healing is very real.
And how could we do this show if we weren't walking the walk? That's been something I know that for Diane and I both, I'll speak for here, but feel free to tell me if I'm wrong, but it's just us doing our own work has been so important, because I think we both think
mean
that,
individually?
Yeah. Like you can't, I can only take my clients as far as I've gone. Same with her. And so that commitment is so beautiful in so many ways. Like I wouldn't even expect anyone to listen to us if we were just not on the battlefield ourselves,
Yeah, such a big, beautiful thing to be able to be like, oof, this is really hard. And with that analogy for you out there, what I mean by that is you put in the roots to do your own inner work, because we have to be self-regulated in order to respond instead of react. So being able to be emotionally accountable is the starting place. And the next steps are our interpersonal relationships. So if there's somebody in your life, a dear friend, a family member, a partner, that you can start practicing these things, and just explore the safety, because what's happened is we knew we had an iceberg of a friendship in terms of the depth. But as we're working on our stuff, we're going deeper and deeper, and there's more nuance and little things we work on, but they're so much less threatening too, because it doesn't feel as unsafe.
Yeah, that's so true. It's such a good point.
Yeah.
It's such a good point.
So there was another one I think you were going to go into, back to ways to know if you're being triggered and identify.
A couple more ways would be flashbacks. Like, so if you've actually had something that's, like a PTSD type of experience, you can have a flashback to that and become triggered. Or other ways would be case building against somebody else. So we did an episode on that, so check that out. But making the other person the bad one, if you start doing that, it means you're triggered.
The other person's all wrong,
yes,
like the bad one, and I'm the angel of the virtuous, without blame or fault.
That's right. And you start justifying, if you start to justify, like, here's why I'm right and they're wrong. Polarized language, so if you use always and never, that might mean you're being triggered. You never do this. Well, probably,
this always happens to me.
And we've all been guilty of it. It's not, it's just something to be aware of. If you are using that language, maybe that'll be a little ping in your mind where you go, oh, I might have some energy here that I could look at.
Like, this always happens to me. You never. Is that true? Can there be some middle nuance?
Is there middle ground?
Yeah.
And then the last one I had there was when you get into obsessive looping thoughts or ruminating. And I have a special little reaction to this one. One might say a small trigger, but that I think a lot of people say, oh, you're just overthinking, you're overanalyzing. And it's like, actually, if you're doing analysis correctly, there isn't really a thing as overanalyzing. If it's a different thing, analyzing is different than overthinking or looping. And so I just want to make that distinction.
Will you say more? Analyzing is different
than just going around in circles
hijacking.
or overthinking. Yeah. So if you're actually analyzing something, and I don't know how one could overanalyze, if it's pertinent to you, but if you're actually analyzing with someone or with yourself, and you're getting somewhere, you're finding out that this connects to this connects to this. Oh, this makes sense in the Gestalt.
Gestalt?
Gestalt is the whole.
Yeah.
So it's like analysis moves you forward.
Yes.
Overthinking or whatever
ruminating,
whatever people obsessing, whatever people mean by that could be known as a trigger because you aren't getting anywhere. You're having the same conversation around and around. That means something else is there. You're triggered and there's something emotionally unresolved that's deeper, that if you can get to that emotional root, you're gonna stop the looping.
Yep, and start growing. I love this. What I was saying about developing our own inner roots, and then in the relationships, you develop this beautiful tree, and then we have the orchard of our community and the greater world and the collective. And I like this idea of the bands going outward, of starting from the center. And this thing about ruminating, obsessing, what I'm thinking, how many out there have just replayed over and over, I should have said,
Oh my God. Especially in my 20s.
I have conversations to this day of like when I think when I'm afraid I'm gonna be in trouble, I'm already preemptively, I guess, low grade triggered, and I start thinking, okay, if this happens, when they say this, if they say this, I'm gonna say this. And I have like 10 different scenarios of what they might say or others might say. Like, it's the whole thing, and it's like,
what's really going on there?
Or even just before we started now, and I was anxious, and Katie's like, but what's it really about this? The kind of obsessive twitching thing about my notes being perfect, and you're like, what's really going on?
Yeah, because we had gone over them yesterday, and we did it very thoroughly. And she did all these little things yesterday, and then today she's over there in the corner.
You just got to highlight with one more color.
And I'm like, I'm triggered because I'm like, let's get going. And
I'm triggered because I want to be perfect.
But then, like, instead of me just being annoyed, which was my old go-to, here's an example in real time of how I worked with a trigger. So she's doing that. I'm aware that I'm starting, like, I want to film. We did this yesterday. Why is she doing this? But then I don't want to be mean.
Looping. You identified I was looping.
Yeah, and I didn't want to, my stuff is around not speaking up or being afraid to speak up. And I said, Katie, try to go to her and just ask what this is about.
It was really effective.
And hopefully in a loving way. Hopefully you felt that.
You actually came over. I was sitting there with my pen and doing my thing. Maybe I'll add the photo to this somehow. But I was doing my thing. And then you come over and you actually put your elbows on the table in front of me and you go, hey.
It's like, yeah.
Where I couldn't miss you. I had my headphones on. And I go, yes. You're like, what's happening here? Yeah. And I was like, I don't know. I just need another.
I'm so proud of myself. Can I just say,
high five.
Good job.
We just talked about this earlier this week. It relates to the trigger from earlier this week. Yeah. So way to grow.
Thank you.
And so then we talked about it. I was like, the perfectionist is here, and then we dealt with that. But I had to first learn I had a perfectionist.
Yep.
Right. And go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I just loved what you said about even with that quote. At least the end of it.
Between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space is our power to choose.
Yes, and I just love that. First of all, it's beware, because what you were saying about overanalyze. What came up for me and you touched on was if we're going over and over and over in a way that isn't really going anywhere. And what comes up for me there is if we're stuck in the shoulds, I should have said this, I should have done this, or I should do this, you should have done this, and just loop, I should have said, in these versus in analysis, I'm thinking about being more integrated and really doing the asking of what's going on here.
Yeah.
Because you were started to go into your little bit of trigger of she should be ready, or we should start. I was over there being like, I should do a couple more run throughs and highlight colors and make sure. And should, as opposed to coming over and really, even symbolically, the way you met me with your body language and your eyes directly and said, what's going on here, instead of silent resentment building.
That's right.
We met what is, which touches on the episode of Meet the Feelings First.
I know.
Go check it out.
It's so true. And how interesting too, right? That once she identified, oh, I am anxious. And what's this about? She stopped all that. We found a solution that works for both of us. She was able to deal with the anxiety, and here we are. So
I was like, oh, in that case, thanks for meeting me there. That works. And we can we can pause as needed to just review if anything. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I said, okay, well then I'm ready. Let's go film.
Yeah.
And that was that. So
I was like 2 high fives.
Good job. Growth happens. It's real, y'all.
It's real.
The science on that is
and
coming.
It seems small, but it's really big.
The little things are the big things. The microcosm is always representative of the macro.
That's so true.
So then coming back again, ways to know you're being triggered. Negative immediate thoughts, like automatic thoughts about oneself, like if you're self-attack, your self-hate, the inner critic starts looming around of, you're the worst, nobody likes you, I'm in trouble, what have I done wrong? I did something wrong. Are they going to leave me? They're going to leave me. Any type of rapid negativity, that's the fear. And the self-defense coming in to try to preemptively get safe because the connection is in danger.
That's right. And and again, what I love so much about ways to know if you're being triggered is that once you can connect whatever your inner critic says, I'm the worst, or like mine is similar to yours, like, oh, they're mad at me. It's always someone's mad at me. But if I start thinking someone's mad at me, if I can link that in my brain to the negative automatic thought being a trigger, I can now go, oh, I'm triggered. Okay, when you're triggered, you're not yourself. Okay.
Right.
And it helps you get free of it. And I think that's the most important piece, because what you said earlier is a word that is so exactly right. When we talk about triggers, we get hijacked.
Yes.
And so to become unhijacked or to become free is profoundly helpful.
Yeah. And yes. It's a takeover. And just a reminder to those of you out there who felt deep shame around being overreactive, overreacting, saying the things, doing the things, and you know what? It's done. But guess what? You aren't your triggers, your traumas, your reactivity, the soul, your spirit, the core of who you are. My belief is we all come into this world pure, innocent, and that's our essence. It's unassailable. So the more we can disidentify from that being who you are, like, or just getting sucked into the shame spirals.
Yes.
That's a part of getting free, becoming free, as well as over-identifying.
Yeah, and becoming more yourself.
Yeah.
Your true self.
Yeah, and accepting, like, okay, I did the thing. And then suddenly there's less power and charge.
That's right.
Yeah. So we are going to take a pause there. That wraps us for part 1 of Working with Your Triggers. Be sure to jump in and join us for part 2.